It's time for From the Short Grass with Trey Schaap, a golf podcast for those who love golf, struggle with golf, and just like to enjoy the outdoors and fellowship with friends, all while chasing a ball around trying to put it in a 4 1/4-inch diameter hole. From the Short Grass is brought to you by Stevens Incorporated, an independent financial services firm with the freedom to focus on what matters most. Blackman Auctions. For over 80 years, better auctions have always been Blackman Auctions. Beechwood Pinnacle Hotels. We partner with you to deliver high-yield results by managing, developing, and investing in top-quality hospitality assets. And now, from the Short Grass, here is your host, Trey Schaap.
Welcome to another edition of From the Short Grass. I am your host, Trey Schaap. This week, it is part 2 of our sit-down with Bryce Molder, the former PGA Tour pro, now living in Scottsdale, Arizona, with his family, his wife and his daughter, and loving life, as you are about to find out in this second part of the 2 parts with Bryce Molder here on From the Short Grass. I want to tell you about our friends at Blackman Auctions. Thomas Blackman knows auctions, and he can sell your property. Go to their website, blackmanauctions.com, find one of their upcoming auctions, or if you want to sell something and you just need an auction to get it sold, you need to call Blackman Auctions. Find them on the web, blackmanauctions.com. Since 1938, better auctions have always been Blackman Auctions. We are back with Bryce Molder, part 2, after this. Stay with us.
Traveling to Fayetteville to watch a game? Forgot to book a room for the night? Beechwood Pinnacle Hotel Group has you covered. Stay where the fans stay. Staybridge Suites is just south of Baum-Walker Stadium and is an all-suite hotel within walking distance of Baum-Walker, Bud Walton, and Razorback Stadium. Or you could stay at the Comfort Inn and Suites with newly remodeled rooms throughout the entire property. Find them on the web at bphotels.com. Beechwood Pinnacle Hotels.
Strength is measured not by the number of accounts. Strength is placing value on relationships. It's having the vision and the guts to invest in growth. It's the commitment to responsibly manage your money. At Stevens, we believe that our strengths build success, not only for us, but for our clients. Stevens, member NYSE, SIPC.
This is Thomas Blackman with Blackman Auctions. The economy is changing slowly but surely. The market is slowing down in a gradual slide. Not an emergency yet, the sky is not falling, but a change is coming. When times are good, auctions make buyers compete to buy at the highest market value. When the economy gets tough, auctions force buyers to make a purchase decision. Either way, auctions get the highest return for a seller and a strong deal for a buyer. With an experienced auction company, it's a simple process. Go to blackmanauctions.com for more information. Since 1938, better auctions are Blackman Auctions.
Welcome back to this edition of From the Short Grass. I am your host, Trey Schaap. A couple of weeks ago, I went out to Scottsdale, Arizona to sit down with former PGA Tour pro Bryce Molder. I've known Bryce for several years now and have followed his career from college all the way to the PGA Tour and winning on the PGA Tour as well. We're about to get into his trek on the PGA Tour and winning on the PGA Tour in part 2 of my sit-down interview with Bryce Molder. I hope you will enjoy it. So, without further ado, on the tee with part 2, here's Bryce Molder.
When did you know, Bryce, that you wanted to be a professional golfer and play on the PGA Tour?
That's an interesting question because I now have read enough to know how important like these statements. If you'd asked me when I was 7 or 8, I would have said I'm going to play on the PGA Tour. I don't know that things like that happen. There's some people out there just crazy talented and a sport or a business finds them, right? But most people that find themselves into that kind of, spot had to have believed it so far prior, right? Because I think I was reading a book about, and they were studying, trying to figure out who was going to excel at something, who was going to be an outlier. And it was, mental aptitude or intelligence. It was, socioeconomical, opportunities and status. It was all these things, hours of practice. And it was all the obvious things you would think it would be, but it wasn't that. It was when you asked somebody early on, how long they were going to do that certain thing. The ones that said, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, just got materially better, quicker, and surpassed everybody else. And it's almost like there was something in there that was like, no, if I pick up the piano today, I can't play the piano at all. But if I decided I was going to play the piano for the rest of my life, I'm going to be a lot better than if it was just like, oh, well, my kid's gotten into piano, and so this year I'm going to just play it with her. Every time you do it, every time you work at it, there's like a different intent in mind. And that's a really long-winded answer, but the truth was I think I was 7 or 8 years old when the first time when somebody would say, what are you going to do? I'm going to play on the PGA Tour. I went to a tournament. I went to the Byron Nelson Classic with my dad. I remember seeing Greg Norman like over the gallery on the 5th green. I couldn't see him, but I could see his like super bleached white blonde hair at the time. I remember that weirdly. And it wasn't like at that moment I said, I'm going to do this, but I remember those, and maybe it was like that prompted me to start saying it. And then I was playing it, and then I was playing it pretty well. And it just kind of was, no, this is what I'm going to do. And so, but I weirdly think that those types of beliefs and things you say, especially when you say them and you believe them for a long period of time, give you the opportunity to actually kind of surpass where others stop. And you practice with a different purpose. And, you know, like we talked about when I was playing in college, and even though at the time I was beating people, I was thinking about the next stage, right? Or when I was 12, I was thinking about, well, I already had it in my head where, okay, well, if there's 150 guys on tour, that means if they play from the years like 25 to 50 years old, okay, then I need to be one of the best 6 players in the country of my age group. I remember I did the math. Didn't even think about the world. That was too big. Now it's a world game, right? So I had the math. I'm like, okay, well, I was living in Oklahoma at the time. I'm like, well, I'm the best player in Oklahoma. I know that. But I don't know if I'm one of the best players in the country. That's when I started playing national tournaments. But it was kind of like that was my thinking.
Or do you have any regrets about the dedication and getting to the PGA Tour and what all comes with that?
There's zero regrets in that I was able to play at a high level. I was able to play at a really high level at certain stages. I was able to struggle enough to enjoy when I got back and played some. And maybe after that I was forever scarred and never able to really push the limits or whatever of what my capabilities, or maybe not. Maybe I just was able to enjoy it more for kind of the last 10, 11 years or so where I had a decent run. So no regrets. I think I stopped playing at the perfect right time for me. And that's a much deeper conversation than that question. But I really don't. I had great friends around me. I made great friends. I kept great friends. I was able to do something that I loved right up until the point where I stopped loving it. And then I was able to walk away. And so if anything, I would have chosen to have the most success later so that your expectations don't get to a certain spot. I think one of the hardest things that I dealt with was just internally having the success and the trajectory that I had as a 20, 21, 22 or 3-year-old. There's only one place to go from there, and it's disappointing. That also gave me the confidence that I knew it was there and stuck around for 5 or 6 years when I virtually didn't beat a soul for a stretch of time, and then to be able to come back out and make a full career on the backside of that, I don't think happens if I didn't have the confidence that the talent, the ability doesn't go away. You just got to figure out how to do it again. So 0 regrets.
You won on the PGA Tour one time. It took a lot of extra work to win that tournament. What do you remember about that? Not just the playoff and the fact that it went 6 holes, but what do you remember about that week?
So Cordoval, which was San Jose, it was the Fries.com Open 2011.
Towards the end of the year, right?
It was weird. It was after the FedEx, but it wasn't a wraparound season yet, so it wasn't part of the FedEx. I remember I had been working very hard on mentally on let's not get stuck being okay with top 5s, top 10s. Let's not be afraid to get a little uncomfortable. And I remember the first hole missing a 20-footer for birdie and running at 4 feet by, and I remember being frustrated that I missed it, not worried about the next one. And that was when I knew something was different that day. But I just remember I was there for, it wasn't like, let's not mess up a good tournament. It was, I can win. That's what we're trying to do today. And it was just different. And then I made a putt at the next hole, and I just kind of went along. I had a really good up and down. I actually short-sided myself on an aggressive iron shot. And again, it caught myself. That's usually one that I kind of bail to the middle of the green and nice and, let's not make any, two hands, hands 10 and 2, right?
Yep.
And so it was just different. And I hit the right shots at the right time. I hit some pretty close, and all of a sudden then I had the lead. I remember Bryony Baird was who I had the playoff hole with, and while I was an 18 fairway with a one-shot lead, I heard a big roar. He chipped in on that hole to go one up. I was able to hit it close, maybe 10 or 12 feet behind the hole. So I needed to make it to tie. And hit a bad putt. Yeah, I pulled it and misread it, and it went.
Funny how that works out.
I mean, yes, and I'm happy to admit that I didn't hit a perfect putt there, right? Because there's so many shots you hit during the day or during the week or whatever that are perfect, and they don't turn out perfect. So goes in, and I get into a playoff. I also remembered for the rest of my career, I bogeyed the first 2 holes that week, and it always just reminded me, like, this is a long tournament.
Right.
And nobody wins or loses it on the first, few holes of the week. So I always carried that with me. And I tell, like, juniors and Georgia Tech golf, I'm like, just so you know, I bogeyed the first 2 holes of the one tournament that I won. So there is no script. So just, keep your head down. But, yeah, so we went into a playoff, and it was fun because the 17th hole, they moved the tee up that day for a drivable par 4. And we kept playing 17, 18. And I had 3 eagle putts on 17 during the playoff from the exact same spot. I misread. It literally was on a spine, because if I played any break, it wouldn't break. If I played it at the hole, it would break. And everybody's yelling at me afterward, it doesn't break, blah, blah. So, but it took until the 6th extra hole, which I was able to make a 6-footer for birdie and get that one win. And now I'm glad I relished that opportunity, because you don't get a whole lot of those. There's only a few guys out there that get a lot of opportunities. So it was a good one to get.
What was that like? What was that feeling like when you finally were able to push through?
You just don't get many chances to be truly satisfied out there, because even if you finish 3rd, you're so close. It's like weird. Sometimes you finish 20th and you feel more satisfied than when you finish 3rd, because sometimes when you finish 20th, you're like, man, I didn't have my game at all. I shot 76 on Friday or Thursday, and then I somehow made the cut, and then I have a low round, and you feel like you stole. And then you've got other times where you finish tied for 3rd, and you feel like you just gave away, a great opportunity. And so to win is one of the really rare times. There's 150-something guys in the field. Full field's 156. So 155 guys that walk away not winning. So you don't get that opportunity. And when you got Tiger playing, and you get half the chances to win, when he was in his prime. So it was amazing. And now and now I'm able to, the difference in winning 0 and 1 is big. The difference in winning 1 and 2 is not that big.
Right. But Bryce, there will be people out there that would say, you finished 3rd. Right now, you're making $1.2 million maybe. That's a lot of money.
And that's part of the reason why you could get stuck kind of being okay with it, and there's 2 sides to it. There's a life, job, business, financial well-being, and then there's here are my goals, here's what I'm trying to go accomplish. And they're not always, aligned perfectly, but it's tough because, no matter how much, if you're making a lot of money, finishing 4th, all you're thinking about is three people that beat you. Why didn't I win? And then if you're finishing 50th, you're thinking, man, I'd just love to have a top 5.
Yeah. Right.
That's just the nature of it. It's there's always something else. And then when you win, now your expectations are higher. Now, are you trying to make it? Are you in the majors trying to make it in the major? Or now that you're in the majors, you want to make the Ryder Cup? Like there's always something, and so you can't outrun what the next thing might be.
It's always out there. You were saying earlier when you were at Georgia Tech that your senior year, you thought there's nobody out there that could beat you. You had to play against Tiger in his prime when he probably had that feeling that if I show up with my A game, there's nobody out here. There's nobody on the planet that's going to be able to play with me. As a tour pro, did you feel that too?
Yeah. I wasn't out there much when he was in his prime. I had about a year to 2 years where I was playing some out there, but I wasn't in the majors yet. So I didn't have a ton of crossover with him. And then when I was playing my best is when he had his injury and he was gone for a little bit. And so I didn't have a lot of – I played a decent amount with Phil, and Phil would do things and you'd just be like, okay, well, that's just stupid. Like you're not supposed to be able to do that with a golf ball. First of all, you're not supposed to try it.
Right.
And then you pull it off and you're like, okay, if he puts it all together, how do you beat him? And then he would 3 weeks later and he'd win by 8. And you're like, okay, that's how, and there were a few guys that I played with. I remember playing with Rory in a major. Just some of the drives he would hit where he was cutting corners, and I remember hitting a 5-iron into the 15th hole at Atlanta Athletic Club, and he flipped a sand wedge because he was able to take it over this bunker that was like 310 carry. And there's a million guys that do that now, but he did it in such precise, like there was nowhere to hit it, and yet he did it. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. Mm-hmm. You can't, like, that's not even the same golf course that we're playing right now. And so, there's certain guys. I played with Duval when he was number one in the world, and he'd taken down Tiger. I think he won like 13 out of 30 events. It was just a sick run. And the guy just didn't, he didn't, for 9 holes, he didn't miss the center of the club face. He didn't miss the center of the flagstick. The ball wouldn't move. It's almost like it couldn't. And you're just like, well, I don't even know how the guy shoots anything worse than 62 doing this, And so you play with certain players when they're doing what they're really good at, and it's pretty fun to watch. I didn't get to see Tiger in his prime. Never played with Tiger. We played in front of him, behind him 2 or 3 times, and we never were paired together.
Interesting. Do you miss that?
Yeah. I met him before the final round. He played right in front of me at Tulsa in the U.S. Open in 2001.
Okay.
And
Southern
Hills. And I met him on the practice green. And I just remember the intensity. And he was about to go play. I was still 22 years old, kind of figuring things out. Probably wasn't the best time to go up to him. He's teeing off in 12 minutes, and at this point he was zoned in. And I remember that intensity. But he already had this aura about him, and I was young enough not to even kind of notice it. It was just kind of like, wow, this is how it works. You're like, no, there's really only one Tiger that creates this. And then I had years later, 2003, I qualified for a U.S. Open again, and I had a buddy that was caddying for me, and he'd been around golf a lot, played professionally a little bit, but was caddying for me that year, and Tiger just walked past us on the putting green. And I remember he first of all, you get like the buzz kind of because there's people following, and there's got the gallery, and you're just still in a practice area, just walking across the edge of the green. And my buddy turns to me and he goes, "Whoa!" He goes, "That was cool." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "I just got hit by his aura, And I was like, but he'd never been around that before. And by the way, but I'm like, yeah, right. And he's like, "Oh my gosh!" But it was crazy. Nobody else created that. Nobody else. Now maybe back Arnie, Jack, Phil's got an energy to him that you're kind of in his world. But Tiger was just this complete other animal. And unless you've experienced that in some way with someone, and President Clinton was very much the same. There's just an aura, and it just. There's people like that, and part of it's what they've done in the office that he sat in, or what Tiger's done, but they also build it. There's those people. But I just remember the look on my buddy's face, and he just about fell over because he was just in awe of it's just the energy that someone can create, but it's also everybody else around. It's pretty funny, but it's real. There was that period of time in there for 15 years where there were Tiger events, there were non-Tiger events, and by the way, it still happens. When he tees up, it is still different.
It is. You're living in Scottsdale. You're a businessman now.
Yeah.
Enjoying life.
I am. I really am. We're sitting here in my office. I've got some guys I work with, and I love what I do on a daily basis. I really do. Lucky to work with people I like. As we were sitting here in the office, just kind of chatting before we started doing this, just said, hey, if you enjoy what you do, you don't have to work, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm very, very fortunate to have two careers that I really enjoy. I enjoy the day-to-day aspect of it. I stopped enjoying golf for a little while. Unfortunately, I was able to leave, and I had some other interests. I don't mind working. I don't mind learning. And now I'm fully invested in what I'm doing now. But I also have just a different life. I dropped my kid off at school today. We've got she and my wife and I are going to dinner tonight. Life is good. I'm coaching first, second, third grade volleyball, which is
oh boy,
just ridiculous. But it's great just to be able to have the option to do those things, right? So life is very good. Very fortunate life. Family's healthy. I like what I do, so it's took a little bit of time, but get to enjoy golf again.
Good.
Where there's it's not who I am anymore. It's just something I get to do for fun, and I love that.
Bryce, I always do this with my guests on my episodes. Favorite golf course you've ever played?
I don't think there's a better one-day golf course than Pebble Beach. I don't think there's a better collection of golf shots. It's hard to take anything over Augusta. I haven't played there in a number of years since college. So maybe it's just recency bias. I love golf courses. So when people say compare this, I say, okay, there's Parkland Golf Course. Everything's up against Augusta. Seaside, everything in my mind is up against Pebble Beach. And then you've got links, and that's St. Andrews. Mm-hmm. Now, you could say there's other better links courses than St. Andrews, blah, 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 or the same thing for one of those. In my mind, the history and then just the fact that all of the golf courses are really compared against that gold standard. I think those are my favorite, but Pebble Beach, in my mind, has the best collection of golf shots, unique golf shots in the world.
Fantasy foursome, living or deceased, 3 other players that you would like to play a round of golf with.
3 other. These are golfers, not just people.
It could be people that play golf. I mean, it could be like you could say, well, I want to play another round with President Clinton.
I would love to play with Tiger. I would have really loved to play with Tiger in his prime.
Collegiate Tiger and collegiate Bryce Molder, or collegiate Bryce Molder and professional Tiger?
Yeah, probably that 2001. He's at the height of his career. I'm at the height of my confidence and just I can take you down. Because a few years later, I would have known that I couldn't if it really was up to it, right?
Right.
And maybe this is more of to see those in their prime, right? To play with Jack Nicklaus in his prime would have just been amazing. Bobby Jones in his era. Golf was different.
Yes.
Golf was played different. Differently. It was a different game. So if you could transport yourself, into that, setting, the first person came to mind to me would be Larry David. Plays golf. I like to laugh. I like to gamble with my buddies. I don't enjoy compliments with my friends on the golf course. That's not what it's meant for. You're supposed to laugh at each other. And if you can laugh at yourself, then you're actually able to enjoy the game, right? So, but the greats to play with, to ever see Ben Hogan actually strike a golf ball in his prime would have been amazing. Just probably you don't even need to see it; you just need to hear it.
Yeah,
those guys are different.
Just like hearing Tiger hit a golf ball, it's different.
It is absolutely different. And there's guys that to watch Phil shape an iron shot or to do whatever he does with his wedges, it's a thing of beauty. It's art. Phil hit this slice 60-yard bunker shot to a tucked pin, and I had to get onto my caddy because my caddy kind of hey, you're going to have to show me how to hit that shot, and Phil goes, well, yeah, but then you're going to have to actually do it. And then I got to pull my caddy over and be like, hey, we're trying to beat this guy. Like, stop, stop telling him how great he is.
With him, yeah.
So, so being able to see the greats in their prime, it's like us trying to explain to kids Michael Jordan, being able to watch him, be like, no, you don't get it.
Mm-mm.
You can't get it.
Mm-mm.
Highlights don't do it. He was just better. That would have been amazing. So I want to play with, in my mind, the best players: Tiger, Jack, Bobby Jones, and Ben Hogan. In my mind, are the best 4 that have ever played. And to see them in their prime would have been amazing.
Bryce, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anytime.
This is Thomas Blackman with Blackman Auctions. You all know by now I'm not a good golfer, but my son loves the game and he and I have been playing more. I've got my score down to, I've quit playing a scramble on every hole. I'm using the bunker rake much less than I used to, and a lot of the time I hit my drives past the women's tee box. All of my success in golf can directly be tied to me listening to From the Short Grass. Without it, I would not be the golfer I am today. Trey, you owe me $20 for that. Trey knows golf, I know auctions. Come see us at BlackmanAuctions.com. Since 1938, better auctions are Blackman Auctions.
Heading to El Dorado to check out some live music or to play Mystic Creek? Stay at the Haywood, the only boutique hotel in the middle of downtown and the Murphy Arts District. If you are spending a weekend in Hot Springs, make plans now at the Marriott Courtyard close to Lake Hamilton and Oaklawn. Beechwood Pinnacle Hotel Group manages both of these fine properties, and you will rest easy knowing that your every need is taken care of. Beechwood Pinnacle Hotels on the web at bphotels.com.
Welcome back to this edition of From the Short Grass. I am your host, Trey Schaap. Beechwood Pinnacle Hotels. Find them on the web, bphotels.com. When you need a place to stay, make sure you make it a Beechwood Pinnacle Hotel property for your next overnight stay. Matthew Allen, Blair Allen, they know how to manage hotel properties. Find them on the web, bphotels.com. I want to thank Bryce Molder for allowing me to come out to Scottsdale, Arizona and take some time out of his busy schedule and spend some time with him and just talk golf. That is what I want this podcast to be about. We are just going to talk golf and get an insight into a former PGA Tour pro. That was some awesome content from Bryce Molder, and I'm glad he allowed me to come out there and spend some time with him. While I was out in Arizona, I had a chance to sit down with a guest that I think you're going to like, and that episode is coming up next week. This is one that I've been talking with for quite some time, trying to lock down a time when we could do the interview, and it just so happens I ran into this person when I was out in Scottsdale for the interview with Bryce. I ran into this person as well. I don't want to spill the beans on what it is, what's coming up in our next episode, but I'm just going to tell you, you're going to want to stay tuned to social media, and you're going to want to download this podcast and make sure you get every new episode that comes out. And we're working on something coming your way pretty soon. There's going to be golf balls to be given away, clubs to be given away, all by downloading the podcast. So stay tuned to the social media. Find us on Twitter, from_shortgrass on Twitter. Follow us there. You'll get up-to-the-date information on everything going on, and you will know exactly when the next podcast comes out. You'll be able to listen to it there. Obviously, we appreciate you listening on Buzz2 and 103.7 The Buzz as well. Our next episode, you will not want to miss. That's all I'm at liberty to say right now. That will do it for this edition of From the Short Grass. I hope you enjoyed our 2 episodes with Bryce Molder. I certainly enjoyed sitting down with him and learning a little bit about how he asked the Secret Service, how do you know I don't have anything in my golf bag? And they responded with, we know. Yes, Bryce, they go through everything before you can play golf with the president. That was quite some story. Remember to always fix your ball mark on the green and a couple of more. And I hope to see you sometime soon from the Short Grass.
You've been listening to From the Short Grass, a weekly podcast dedicated to the game of golf. This has been a presentation of the Buzz Radio Network.